Good evening and welcome to the Nipawin Mayoral All Candidates Forum ahead of the 2020 municipal elections in Saskatchewan. I'm Aaron Schultz. I'll be your moderator for our pair of municipal all candidates forums for the mayoral race and then the council race here in the town of Nipawin. We're live here from Nipawin Apostolic Church here in the town of Nipawin on traditional territory 6 territory, the homeland of the Métis people. We're going to begin with our Mayoral All Candidates Forum with our 3 nominees vying to be your mayor for the town of Nipawin here in the year 2020 and hopefully gain a 4-year term. We begin first with our introductions. The first candidate, of course, is the incumbent mayor, Madam Mayor Rennie Harper. And the 2 challengers, first beginning in the middle with Mr. Brian Starkel. And finally, Mr. Marlon Zacharias. All right, all 3 of you candidates have been given the rules in advance, and for everyone tuning at home and tuning in live on Facebook Live and YouTube, here are the rules that all 3 candidates have been given and have been told ahead of time. Here are the rules so you following at home know what's going to be going on. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for a presentation. Candidates will be given a 30-second time remaining signal during their presentation, then another 10-second time remaining signal. The microphone will be muted if you go over time. This allows everyone equal time, so obviously we don't want to mute anyone's microphones tonight, but we will have to if necessary to keep the night flowing. The audience, you watching at home, will have the opportunity to write in questions for your mayoral and council candidates, whether you be watching on Facebook Live or YouTube. You'll have the opportunity to be a part of these all candidates forums. The moderator, myself, will read the questions out loud, then direct the question to the candidate that the question was directed to. The remaining candidates will then be welcome to answer the question that was directed to the first candidate. This way, the audience can hear each candidate's platform on that particular issue. When questions are directed to all candidates will then have the opportunity to answer the directed question. Candidates may pass comment on any questions. Replies to questions will be limited to 2 minutes. The timer will provide a 30-second time remaining signal, then another 10-second time remaining signal. At 6:45 p.m., it will be the closing of comments for 5 minutes. The end time of this all candidates forum will be 7 o'clock. We did a draw earlier this evening to determine who would be first to give their opening remarks, and following the draws, the first one for opening remarks will be one of the challengers, Mr. Marlon Zacharias. Marlon, you have a few minutes quickly to give your opening remarks ahead of this all candidates forum.
Hi, my name is Marlon Zacharias, and I am planning for growth. I grew up in a small hamlet just outside Meadow Lake, and growing up in a small community has taught me to be respectful and inclusive of everyone, and I still hold those values today. I moved to Nipawin with my daughter and bought a local business 6 years ago. Shortly after, I joined our local Chamber of Commerce and spent 4 years on their board, including 2 years as their president. I decided I wanted to be a part of Nipawin's future in a larger way. I started planning for growth. My plan focuses on economic growth for Nipawin, from expanding our industrial, commercial, and retail business community, and developing our tourism sector, to creating a positive environment for families to live, work, and play. I've learned about how our community breathes in all of us, and I want to see our community grow into the future. To get there, we have to be planning for growth, and with your vote, we will grow together.
Thank you, Marlon. Now the second in the order is the incumbent, Madam Mayor Rennie Harper. Rennie, you have 2 minutes for opening remarks.
Good evening. My name is Rennie Harper, and I became mayor 4 years ago to encourage collaboration and working together, improve communication, and a solid action plan with targets designed to move us forward and regenerate the pride in our community. I continue to be a strong proponent of partnerships and community advice to build a community where people see each other's strengths instead of differences and fears. Continues to be my goal. All people, all cultures, and all demographics, including youth and seniors. Oh, fiddle. Forgot to use the mic. I remind you that during the 2016 election, none of the former council ran for office with the exception of one. Our town was in turmoil over multiple issues, and it took a while to bring 7 people, all new to the roles, and a new CEO, new to the community, to work as a cohesive body. That doesn't mean all agreed. Rather, our differences resulted in some very good solutions. You will further note that all of the current council members are running for re-election, showing how positive they are about what's been accomplished. We had 3 by-elections, yes, and though rumor may have said otherwise, all were as a result of people facing personal health, family, or work-related issues. Those same former councillors have continued to provide input, feedback, and support to this council. We stepped up and led with immediacy at the start of the pandemic. We will continue to live with this pandemic into 2021 and will face a long road to economic recovery. I will continue to provide a steady hand and strong leadership to guide us through these complex times. We focused hard on economic development, ongoing communication with Carpeer, hosting several entrepreneurs looking to develop alternative senior living options, and continue to be in touch with Canadian Tire, Walmart, Canalta, Boston Pizza, and others.
Thank you very much, Rennie. Now the final opening remark to Mr. Brian Starkell. You have 2 minutes.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Thank you to the Chamber for hosting this event. Also like to thank the Apostolic Church for opening their doors and allowing us to use their building and equipment. Thank you for all the candidates for leaving their name stand to be an elected official for the town of Nipawin. As everyone is aware that I'm a long-term resident of Nipawin area, and I'm proud to call Nipawin home. I've served for 8 years on the Village Council in Cadet, and with my administration experience with the town of Nipawin, I believe it would be an asset to our community. I believe that we're all saying the same things, that we want Nipawin to be a great place to grow. Further focus on economic development is needed to ensure that we attract new businesses for our area. Revitalization of downtown is also important. We must develop, maintain a risk and asset management plans, build strong working relationship with other municipalities, but first of all, we have to get our house in order. By hiring an economic development officer, a director of public works, and once everyone's in place, one of our jobs as council members will be supporting our administration team to improve services to our residents. I was at a seminar in Philadelphia 2 years ago, and one of our guest speakers was Laura Bush, and she said something that stuck with me, that everyone that walks into the Oval Office wants to change it just to make it a little better than how they found it. And I believe that's true here in Nipawin, that we, the elected officials, would like to leave it a little better than how we found it. In closing, I look forward for the next 4 years working for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you, 3, for your opening remarks. We will now go to the questions. The first questions are targeted to the challengers, Mr. Marlon Zacharias and Mr. Brian Starkell. If elected, how will you ensure that projects currently underway in the town of Nipawin will be finished seamlessly? Marlon, you'll be first. You have a 2-minute response.
Well, when a project is started, it's definitely not going to be part of my mindset to go back and want to reset everything that we've had. And I do believe with a strong council beside me that we were going to just continue to push everything forward. It's going to be fairly straightforward. I don't see any big reasons to stop a project just because it might not be exactly what I had or exactly how I wanted to do it.
Thank you, Marlon. Brian Starkell, same question. You have a 2-minute response.
Thank you. First of all, we'd have to meet with the CEO and ask what the details were done with the project. And also we'd have to talk with the other council members that might be elected or might be on the table at that time. And also with the administration to make sure that we are all on the same page. And once the project we're familiar with the project, I don't see any problem with continuing the project as going on as needed.
Thank you very much, Brian. Rennie Harper, a 30-second rebuttal.
No rebuttal, just some support. It's a little complicated. There are lots of things to learn, so projects that are ongoing will have to be front and center for whichever incumbent or whichever mayor is sitting in the chair.
Thank you, Rennie. Marlon, a 30-second rebuttal, if you please.
there's nothing else to add.
Brian Sarkell, a 30
No, thanks.
second.
Thank you.
Good show. Moving on. This question is targeted to the incumbent Madam Mayor, Rennie Harper. Was there anything that you had planned to accomplish in your term as mayor that didn't happen? If so, what stopped you, and will you try again? You have 2 minutes.
A couple of things that I would like to still accomplish. One of those that has been begun is a heliport for access for healthcare. Another is an ICIP application on behalf of the Boreal Area Regional Waste Authority, the landfill. It's a huge application, $3.5 million, that will need to be completed. Within the next 2 years, we will be required to close and decommission the old cells at the landfill. And whether or not we have federal and provincial funds to do that, that still will have to be done. So that is those are two of the things that I would like to see continue.
Thank you, Rennie. Marlon, a 30-second rebuttal, if you please. Moving on. Brian Sarkell, 30-second rebuttal, if you please.
The landfill is a big issue, and there's a lot of time and energy that has to be put into that project. We know that this council has worked endlessly on that project, and we have nothing but respect for that. But again, we have to work as a team, not just myself as a mayor, but as a team. Thank you.
Rennie, a final 30-second response.
No, thank you.
Thank you all. This one is directed to all candidates, so you'll each have a 2-minute response to this question as it's directed to everyone. How will you address the problem of homelessness and transients in Nipawin? You have 2 minutes each, going by the order. Marlon Zacharias, you have 2 minutes to that response. How will you address the problem of homelessness in Nipawin?
Well, I think the biggest thing we need to do is expand housing in general within our community. And I do have a few opportunities that I think we could do in terms of bringing in private developers that want to bring in the potential for tiny homes and other opportunities like that, where somebody doesn't necessarily want to have a home that is 1,200 square feet or something like that. We can definitely downsize and offer smaller, more affordable houses to young families or homeless people.
Thank you, Marlon. Rennie Harper, 2 minutes, same question.
Actually, homelessness has been an issue in Nipawin for about 30 years or more. And very early on, I was among a group that was begun to address relative homelessness within this community called HOMES, Housing, Opportunity, Mentorship, Employment, and Safety. And I am very aware of what successfully has been done in Medicine Hat and would like to replicate that with the assistance of our new Community Pandemic Oversight Committee, which provides input from 20 different organizations, not just from the town of Nipawin. It's a community responsibility, not just a responsibility for the town.
Thank you, Rennie. Brian Sarkell, a 2-minute response, same question.
Thank you. We, the council, would have to work directly with other municipalities, and also we would have to work with developers. We would have to see if we could get some smaller homes in Nipawin for the single families, and also we would have to look at maybe some duplexes or apartment buildings. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you all. Another all candidates question, so you each get a 2-minute response. Nipawin serves as a commercial hub for the Northeast. How would you view interest from a large national brand box store moving to town, and do you think it would hurt local business? Marlon Zacharias, you have 2 minutes.
Well, I do think that there have been some options, as it was mentioned actually earlier on. You know, has been some communication with other big retailers like Walmart and things like that. I think that there is always the concern that a big retailer, a big box store is going to hurt our small businesses and our local businesses. I like to think that eventually these stores are going to end up in the Northeast anyway, and I would rather see some of them developing in our area, supporting our employment and paying their taxes to our community, allowing us to expand with business.
Thank you, Marlon. Rennie Harper, same question, 2 minutes.
I'm actually very keen on promoting the local entrepreneurs. We've had numerous young local entrepreneurs. Said something about would I be in favor of bringing large box things. That's a complicated issue, and we've talked to a lot of Walmarts and Canadian Tires, and they decide themselves whether or not they're going to come here. I think it would be a challenge for local business. It will also be a challenge for having enough people to provide the demand for employees. I think it's a thing that we have to work towards. It's not a thing that I'd like to see happen tomorrow. I think I'd like to encourage local entrepreneurs to step up and build new local businesses for the town of Nipawin.
Thank you, Rennie. Brian Starkell, 2 minutes, same question.
Okay, thank you. First of all, we'd have to look at some land and probably purchase some land and then get that developed. If we wanted the box stores to come into Nipawin, they would have to probably do that themselves. And then, again, it'd be a struggle for their small business people that have been in Nipawin for numerous of years supporting our local community. And I think that's very important that we have to look after them as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you all three again. This question is directed to the two challengers, Marlon Zacharias and Brian Starkell, so you will each have 2 minutes to respond. What do you see as the biggest faults of the outgoing administration, and what would you do to fix these faults? Beginning with Marlon Zacharias, you have 2 minutes.
I wouldn't necessarily say that there has been any flat-out faults, but where I would see room for improvement is in the dedication to our business community and looking to grow the business community. As a president and board member at the Chamber of Commerce, this is something that we heard from the whole time I was on the board. 4 years, we were worried about people shopping local and having those options for them to get the things they needed right here in our community. So for me, a big priority would be our economic development, and I do think we have a lot to offer here for tourism, and I think we can utilize it in a better way.
Thank you, Marlon. Brian Starkell, same question, a 2-minute response as it was directed to you and Marlon.
Could you just repeat the question, please?
Of course. What do you see as the biggest faults of the outgoing administration, and how would you fix these faults? You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. There's not a lot of faults that we can blame anybody because we all have to take this as a team. We're all in this together, and what we could do is better communications and keep looking to what we could do for Nipawin to improve our status. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Rennie Harper, a 30-second rebuttal, if you please.
Well, I won't talk about faults, but I would like to say that this council has focused very solidly on economic development. We have had 2 economic development officers. Just recently, someone left for personal reasons. However, I believe that with the inception of the new Community Advisory Committee that is a joint venture between the Chamber of Commerce and the town of Nipawin and a number of local business owners will be the best way to move this forward.
Thank you, Rennie. Marlon, a final 30-second rebuttal, if you please.
I don't have one.
Thank you. Mr. Starkell?
I'll pass. Thank you.
Thank you all again. This question is directed to the incumbent Madam Mayor, Rennie Harper. Having just completed a term as mayor, how will your experience distance yourself from your opponents? You have 2 minutes.
Would you repeat that? How would my experience distance myself?
Yeah, of course. 1 second. Having just completed a term as mayor, how will your experience distance you from your opponents? You have 2 minutes.
I'm not sure I totally understand the question, but I think what I'm being asked is how is my running different than theirs? I'm not sure if that's the question. I do believe that I have the experience, I have the training, both in office and so that is different than 2 new folks coming to the table. There will be things to learn, which obviously I won't have to do. I hope I've answered the question. I'm not sure that I was clear on it.
I believe you answered the question. Thank you very much, Rennie. Marlon, a 30-second rebuttal.
I know I don't come to this forum with experience as a mayor or a council for the town of Nipawin. What I do come with is 4 years' experience on the Chamber of Commerce board, and 2 of those years as their lead as president. I also am a vested business owner. I'm invested in this community. I do want to see it succeed for that reason, and I do come with outside business experience when I lived in Saskatoon as well.
Thank you, Marlon. Brian Starkelli, 30-second rebuttal.
Like I said, I've served 8 years on the village council in Cadet, and with my administration experience of 10 years with the town of Nipawin, I believe this would be an asset to our community. Also, operating a small business in Nipawin for 10 years, I believe also that would be an asset to our community, and also working as a volunteer in our community through the Lions and other organizations that I've helped out in the past. I'd like to thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian, and thank you all. We're now going to the comments on Facebook Live and YouTube from Nipawin residents watching from home, and we thank you very much for tuning in and continuing to tune in and submit your questions and be a part of this All Candidates Forum held by the Nipawin and District Chamber of Commerce. The first question we're going from the comments is directed to everyone, so everyone will be supplied a 2-minute response. Fiscal responsibility is an important part of being mayor. Please tell us your experience and strengths in financial management, beginning with Marlon Zacharias. You have 2 minutes.
Well, I've stated it a few times. I did spend 4 years on our local Chamber of Commerce board, so working with the budgets that we have there. I also work with budgeting every day in my own business and with a business that I was a part of in the past in Saskatoon. So I do have a lot of experience with budgeting and being fiscally responsible.
Thank you very much, Marlon. Rennie Harper, a 2-minute response.
Well, I'm very well versed in financial business, and I would like to say that the town of Nipawin, under our guidance, has moved from a net financial asset position in 2017 to an improved asset position 2018-2019. We've done a number of things, which I'll talk about at the end, without an addition to the cost and without raising taxes and lowering the base tax at the same time. I have managed budgets of upwards of $120 million and am familiar as to how to do that.
Thank you, Rennie. Brian Starkel, a 2-minute response.
Being working with the town of Nipawin on the administration side for 10 years, I understand the importance of the budgeting. Also, running your own business, you have a challenge there as well. So I understand that part that has to be done, working directly with the administration, staff, and also the rest of the council members, and also taking orders from our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you all three as always. Going back to the comments, another question is directed to all candidates, so everyone's provided a 2-minute response. What would you do first? Raise taxes to increase services or lower services to reduce taxes? Marlon Zacharias, you have a 2-minute response.
Well, I don't think that either of those sound real attractive to our voters. Ideally, what I would like to see happen in Nipawin, there's 2 ways to raise money for the town. The first one is by raising taxes. The second one is by increasing your tax base, adding more residents to our community, adding more businesses, adding people who pay tax into the base pool. That's what I would want to do first. I want to grow this community.
Thank you, Marlon. Rennie Harper, a 2-minute response.
I actually wouldn't do either one of those first. I would hope to also increase the tax base. We have, over the past 4 years, done a number of those things, increased the accessibility for infill lots, those kinds of things, and we have managed, without raising taxes significantly, to still accomplish the needs of this community, and I do believe that that is possible into the future.
Thank you, Rennie. Brian Starkel, a 2-minute response to the same question.
Thank you. I also wouldn't like to see either of those. I think we'd have to work together with the administration staff, looking at the budget, see if there's any way that we could save some money through the budget process to keep our services at the level that we are expected to perform for our residents in our community.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you all three as always. Going back to the comments, another all candidates question, meaning another 2-minute response each. What is Nipawin's biggest challenge and how would you address it? Marlon Zacharias, you have 2 minutes.
I think the biggest challenge, again, this leads all back to our business community, is we're seeing people worrying about our downtown businesses all the time, whether they're closing or potentially moving out into another community where they can make a better run at providing for their own families. I think our biggest challenge is working on keeping people in our community and shopping local and choosing Nipawin then to live, work, and play.
Thank you, Marlon. Rennie Harper, a 2-minute response to the same question.
Since you're asking me that question today, I would actually say that right now our biggest challenge is COVID-19 and the effect that it's an impact that it's having on our local business. I do too believe that we need to focus on the slogan that we have come up with, think, buy, shop locally. I think we need to figure out ways to do that better. And I think we need to focus very hard on working together, which is what I was talking about earlier with this new advisory committee that includes representatives from local business and our Chamber of Commerce and the town of Nipawin. I think the responsibility is everyone's problem, not just that of the town of Nipawin.
Thank you, Rennie. Brian Sarkell, a 2-minute response.
Okay, thank you. I believe that we would have to say is that Nipawin's a great place to grow. And that means businesses, community, people, and just bringing everything back into Nipawin, making Nipawin, downtown, and the whole area a positive place to be that everybody would like to be at. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you all three. This question from the comments is directed towards Mr. Marlon Zacharias. What is your experience in governance? Please explain how you plan on paying for some of the proposals you have suggested. You have 2 minutes.
As I stated earlier, I spent 4 years on the Chamber of Commerce. That has taught me a lot in terms of governance, 2 years as their president as well. So I think that gives me the experience to get started here with this position. In terms of paying for the things that I've proposed in my planning for growth, it's already there. It's just being more efficient and using the money that we already have to create the environment that we need to actually grow.
Thank you, Marlon. Rennie, you're allowed a 30-second response, if you please.
You'll have to repeat the question for me, please.
It was mainly about Marlon's experience as governance and plan on paying for some of the proposals suggested. You're allowed a 30-second response, if you please, if it's directed.
I have strong governance skills. As a matter of fact, I have training from the University of Regina in governance. I am very familiar with that. Governance means nose in, understand what's going on, and keep your fingers out. And that's probably the most important thing that you need to know about governance.
Thank you, Rennie. Brian, you're allowed a 30-second response.
Governance as well is that we have to work together as a team, just like I've said before. Us listening to our residents of the town of Nipawin and the administration staff along with the taxpayers so that we can all work together.
Thank you, Brian. And Marlon, you're allowed a final 30-second response if you want.
I don't have another response.
Thank you, Marlon, and thank you all three, and also thanks to the Nipawin Apostolic Church staff for the quick technical issues being fixed on the fly. It's greatly appreciated. This another question is directed to all candidates, so everyone's provided a 2-minute response. How important is it for the town to support organizations such as the Nipawin Hawks, minor hockey, and other local sporting organizations in the town of Nipawin? Marlon Zacharias, you got 2 minutes.
I think it's really important to support those organizations in the community. The Nipawin Hawks and all those other organizations that take part here are what provide an increase in our ability to enjoy ourselves while we're here. In Nipawin, there's always people going to the Hawks games, they're going to the pool, they're taking advantage of all the things that we have to offer, and that makes our community, that's part of what makes our community great, is we have things that we can go out and interact with the rest of the community members and our residents and just have a great time together. And Nipawin supporting that is supporting the community.
Thank you, Marlon. Rennie, you have a 2-minute response.
It's extremely important, Aaron. I think the support, and it doesn't necessarily mean financial support. Sometimes it means something a little bit different, but although I think people are thinking about financial, it's very important, and the town of Nipawin does support the Nipawin Junior Hawks and Kids Sport and NEOS, the Northeast Outreach Services, and the museum and the Heritage Society. It supports. It's important to support those things also with your presence and your cheering on, all of those kinds of things. It's extremely important.
Thank you, Rennie. Brian, you're allowed a 2-minute response.
Thank you. I also agree it's extremely important that the town of Nipawin supports our hockey and our baseball and our soccer and all the sports that are Nipawin. The Hawks bring a lot of people into our community. The baseball teams with grandpa and grandma coming in. So there's so much that we can do with that. So if we support them in full, the community will support the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you all three as always. Going back to the comments, another question is directed to all candidates, so 2-minute responses each. What role could Nipawin play in developing the Northeast region in terms of health and education? Marlon Zacharias, you have 2 minutes.
I would have to admit I don't necessarily know a lot about health and education specifically, but I think that I would definitely like to work with Cumberland College. I know we've lost some of our programs that we used to have here, and I would like to see some of that coming back into our area. I've seen us losing various things to other centers, and we need to push back and be strong for Nipawin and bring those services back here to make us the hub of the Northeast.
Thank you, Marlon. Rennie Harper, you're allowed a 2-minute response.
I think Nipawin plays an important role in bringing the things in the Northeast, and I would expand that to that whole Northeast to include Melfort, Tisdale, Nipawin, Kelvington, that whole Hudson Bay. And I think there are examples of that continue to need to be worked on. Things like the Keewatin Gateway, the partnership that is 9 partners of the Twin Lakes District Planning Commission, where we already are working on projects together, the heliport being one of those, not just one community. I think about Nipawin, Tisdale, Melfort, before COVID happened, we have been talking hard about whether or not we could host a collective winter or summer games, those kinds of things to build some cohesiveness. And I think that the enthusiasm that I bring and the positive vision that I bring to that is something that can help grow that in the Northeast.
Thank you, Rennie. Brian Starkell, a 2-minute response.
Thank you. I think the health and education is very important for the Northeast, not just Nipawin. We got to include all the municipalities in our local area. Once we bring in the area, the health, to our hospital and to our home care workers, and also the education, not just in our local schools, but down at the community college, and also at the education that people are doing tutoring, which is all very important. And I think that we have to all start working together towards this project.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you all three. Another question from the Facebook YouTube comments directed to all candidates. As a small business owner in Nipawin, I find my taxes a huge burden. Is there any hope of a tax break for small businesses? Marlon Zacharias, you got 2 minutes.
It's hard to give a tax break to one person or to one part of the community without raising taxes somewhere else. That being said, I do think that the tax structure will be reviewed. For me, I want to learn more about exactly how it's being done right now. And I do think that the best way to raise money for the town isn't going to be with tax increases on our businesses or our residents. It's going to be about adding more businesses, adding more people, so that our general pool of people that we're collecting taxes from is larger.
Thank you, Marlon. Rennie Harper, a 2-minute response.
So I also understand that it's not about focusing on one particular business. And I think I have to remind people that taxes are not just raised by the town of Nipawin. Taxes are based on assessments, and which actually we will be doing again in 2021 by the province, and aren't always controlled totally by the town of Nipawin. Perhaps there are other ways to focus on assisting small business, something like a community fund that perhaps could assist small business in some ways, especially during this COVID and over the short term. I think there are other opportunities, and I will say that we are very aware that of the comment that we just got here. We are very aware of that and would like to find some solutions to that and have been working on finding solutions.
Thank you, Rennie. Mr. Brian Sarkel, a 2-minute response.
Thank you. I also agree that it's unfair or not as fair to the local business people. But I think we, as the community, have to go out and support this business, all the businesses in Nipawin, so that they can afford to pay those taxes. And also, we do have to keep looking at other ways to raise funds in our community through government grants or whatever it might be to help or keep our taxes low or lower than what they maybe are now or what they should be in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you all three. Another all candidates question from the comments: what role should a municipality play in contrast with separate groups such as the Nipawin and District Chamber of Commerce? Where does one start and where does the other begin? Marlon Zacharias, you got a 2-minute response.
Well, the main thing that I saw when I was a part of the Chamber of Commerce was that the Chamber is there to advocate to grow and help its membership, and the town is there to help create the policies that the businesses will be following when they get here. So for me, the town is to set the policies and look at bringing the businesses here, and that's where it ends.
Thank you, Marlon. Rennie Harper, a 2-minute response.
Actually, they're very distinct role differences. The Chamber of Commerce indeed is the responsible for lobbying, if you will, on behalf of its membership. There are businesses, however, that do not belong to the Chamber of Commerce, and those businesses also need the look by the town of Nipawin. I do believe that the town of Nipawin, the municipality, is responsible for setting policy and direction. I think we've come a ways with this advisory committee where we will sort of see across a number of things, not just focused on the chamber, but rather on businesses that don't necessarily belong to the chamber or that are outside of our community, perhaps.
Thank you, Rennie. Brian Starkell, a 2-minute response.
Lots of loaded questions, especially when the Chamber hosted this event tonight. But thank you. I believe that the Chamber of Commerce should be supporting and looking after their businesses and promoting them as well. Also, the town of Nipawin has to look after supporting the Chamber through the events that we might have in our community, and also it might be some lines of financial. So thank you.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you all three. Another question directed to all candidates: how will the newly elected mayor focus on community safety and protect its residents and businesses? Marlon Zacharias, you got a 2-minute response.
Crime is a really tough subject. It's really hard to come up with a strong solution where you can just wave a magic wand and it'll go away. Myself, I think we need to continue to work and have a strong relationship with our local RCMP to find ways that we can help them to improve coverage in our area. I would even consider expanding and increasing the size of our detachment and maybe adding a couple officers if it made sense. I think we could also look at working with within the community at some small groups such as Citizens on Patrol. And I would also look at maybe developing some youth programs with community organizations for the young people, and looking at funding that through some government opportunities, government grants.
Thank you, Marlon. Rennie, a 2-minute response.
Safety is a really important issue, and I know it's on the mind of a lot of people. And I particularly have been lobbying the ministry and the premier to focus on safety issues and citing things like it's not just cities that have issues of safety. We face identically the same kinds of situations that are out there for cities, yet we don't have necessarily the resources to address them in the same way. I think implementing a community safety officer role could assist with the RCMP situation. And I do believe that we need to lobby the provincial government to help the entire province in regard to community safety. It's not just about the community of Nipawin. I think it is a provincial thing, and I think collectively we could make a difference in the province responding to that.
Thank you, Rennie. Brian, a 2-minute response.
Thank you. I also believe that if we work more closely with the RCMP, and I mean everybody in the community, not just the town of Nipawin, that we could all give them information, and maybe that would definitely help reduce the crime rate. Neighborhood watch, citizens on patrol, 2 of the local things that maybe we can do here as well. I know that there is a citizens on patrol in Nipawin right now, but they're a small group, and maybe we have to get out there and get some more people involved with that, and then neighborhood watch as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you all three. Another question from the comment section. A quick shout out to everyone watching and tuning in from home on Facebook Live or YouTube, wherever you've been. Rennie, you got a 2-minute response.
Well, I've definitely demonstrated that support for the reconciliation and I would support that committee and have. And we have been working diligently on a plan with the First Nation communities around us, Cumberland House Cree Nation for one, and the Red Earth Cree Nation for two. And we do meet together on a regular basis. As a matter of fact, during COVID, we have been supporting some of our First Nation communities to help them as they get things in order to do some isolation and so on and so forth. Totally need to focus on reconciliation, and we have been doing that in a very large way.
Thank you, Rennie. Brian Starkell, a 2-minute response.
I do believe that we have to support everybody, and that includes that organization as well. They're a good group of people. They spend a lot of money in our community, and without them, I think our whole community would be hurting.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you all three. Another question directed to all candidates. All three candidates have mentioned bringing new businesses into Nipawin. How do you plan to attract new businesses? Marlon Zacharias, you got a 2-minute response.
Well, I think the first thing I would look at doing is making sure that we're going to have available to us land for development, because the first thing a business is going to need is a place to open their doors. I also think that there's opportunities to create some tax incentives for new businesses coming in, and I think we just need to also look at finding out specifically what kind of industries we might want here and focus on targeting those specific industries. If we find something that can fill a hole that we have here, a need that we actually have, it will be a lot easier for us to bring them in by showing them what they can offer to our community and how we will support them.
Thank you, Marlon. Rennie Harper, a 2-minute response.
We have, as a matter of fact, attracted interest in the town of Nipawin by several businesses that have been looking to implement assisted living type housing that would solve two issues. I think tax incentives perhaps are something that you can review, but sometimes it's not about the tax incentives. I would agree that land base is an important issue, and the town of Nipawin, along with others, probably do need to investigate to see how we can find additional land for businesses to locate on. I do think we also want to think carefully about how we would support local entrepreneurs to start business in our community. And part of that is demonstrating that we will shop and buy locally and support local business, which doesn't always happen.
Thank you, Rennie. Brian Starkell, a 2-minute response.
Well, once the town gets a new economic development officer in place, that would be that person's job to go out and check with all the other businesses that might be interested in coming into Nipawin, and also other developers, maybe because they might have to purchase the land to develop the building that new business might want to start there. But also we have to look downtown and look at some small businesses in downtown area, because the downtown mom and pop stores are the ones that always are employing the 1, 2, 3 people for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you all three. Another all candidates question: what kind of plan do you have to attract and retain doctors to our community? Marlon Zacharias, you have a 2-minute response.
I think working with our doctors is going to be really important. I did just have somebody mention to me that they were not able to secure a doctor here. So I'm not sure what the best way is for us to attract and keep the doctors we have. Something like that is, I would definitely have to lean on some of our other counselors that have experience in that industry. And I think we can come up with a plan. I just don't know exactly what it's going to look like today.
Thank you, Marlon. Rennie Harper, a 2-minute response.
For me, I have significant experience in this area, and we have continued to work on recruiting and retaining physicians. We are actually short of some physicians at this point in time, but it is not simply the role of the town of Nipawin to recruit physicians. You need to do that in concert and work together with the physicians that are already here and with the Saskatchewan Health Authority. It is their role to recruit physicians. When you get them here, though, it is important to be able to welcome them and embed them in your community so that they want to stay. That's a very important part of physician recruitment and isn't always focused on hard enough.
Thank you, Rennie. Brian Starkell, a 2-minute response.
I agree with Rennie on this one, is that Saskatchewan Health has to look after bringing in doctors to our community, but also the local doctors have to work together, and also the town of Nipawin has to get them involved with our community, if it's joining a local service club, and also bringing them with their families so that they could be a part of our community as well.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you all three. Going back to the comments from Facebook Live and YouTube, another question for all candidates. How do we grow tourism in Nipawin? Marlon Zacharias, you got a 2-minute response.
Well, tourism has definitely got a very close place in my heart. That's actually initially what made me choose Nipawin when I moved here 6 years ago. I heard a rumor that the fishing here was all right, and that's what brought me here. Then there was an opportunity for me to take over and buy a business, and I think what we need to do to improve it is we need to look at more, not just in the 1 to 2 hours of here. We need to advertise us as a global destination. We are a destination that people come from all over the world to fish and hunt and snowmobile. There's so many things that we have to offer here. I also have a bit of an idea to join the big things in Saskatchewan. So I do have some ideas that I think would really put us back on the map with more than just fishing.
Thank you, Marlon. Rennie Harper, a 2-minute response.
Tourism is indeed about more than just fishing, and I think we've focused a lot on the angling here, but I think there are lots of other opportunities. I think one of the important ways to attract people to our community, though, is about our local attitude and about a positive attitude that we show wherever we are that has people thinking, that must be a really nice place to be. And I think attracting tourism and people to our locality is everybody's responsibility, not just that of the town or the chamber. I think we all need to participate in attracting tourism. I think that's increasingly difficult during COVID, which is a reality for us right now, and I want to remind us of that.
Thank you, Rennie. And Brian Starkell, a final 2-minute response.
Thank you. Tourism, we have much more to offer in our community here, like hunting, cross-country skiing, hiking, and also down sledding out at Wapiti. And we all have to be out there promoting this. This is just not economic development or chamber. Years ago, went to the States, promoted the fishing at Tobin Lake, and that worked out very well. Other economic development officers went to trade fairs and spoke about all the good things about Nipawin in tourism. So I believe that we have to do the same things, start talking positive in our community.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you all three. And that concludes the question portion of tonight's Mayoral All Candidates Forum hosted by the Nipawin and District Chamber of Commerce. Thank you everyone on Facebook Live and YouTube for getting your comments in and staying interactive for tonight's Candidates Forum, and apologies if we were unable to get to your questions tonight. We are now in the portion of the Candidates Forum where all our three mayoral candidates that you will ultimately decide who will lead the town of Nipawin for 2020 and beyond. It's now time for their 5-minute closing remarks. We did a draw before this All Candidates Forum began. The order was drawn before, so now we're going to go to that order. Incumbent Mayor, Madam Rennie Harper, you have a 5-minute closing remark.
I thought I was second. Being entrusted with the responsibility of leading a council to oversee a town is a huge responsibility, which I assure you I have taken very seriously. I am direct and decisive, with no vendetta or axe to grind, only focused on the best for all of us. This council and I have achieved much in the last 4 years because the list is long and my time short, I'm going to highlight a few. We've created a grassroots community economic and tourism advisory committee, developed and co-chaired by Chamber President Ben Paskaruk and myself to ensure the voice of local business is heard. We've developed a new plan for residential lot purchasing to continue to grow affordable and available housing for middle and low income families. A new infill program. We've reduced the base tax and ensured zero increase in 2020 to assist with COVID impacts and implemented deferrals on utility bills and removed interest. Partnered with other agencies to achieve economies of scale. We continue to provide COVID leadership through collaboration with 20 partner agencies through an emergency operations center model through which we're going to talk about homelessness. Increased marketing of Nipawin through the use of technology and social media. We've replaced aging equipment and infrastructure, a sand truck, a Zamboni, a loader, an ice plant, rink boards and rink lighting, and replaced the command vehicle for the fire department, all while keeping costs under control. Implemented a full-time bylaw officer and an economic development officer. Received municipal economic enhancement funding, which is going to assist with the stormwater management, assist with public and staff safety at Gordon Subdivision, raised the positive profile of Nipawin with government and ministries, actively continue to assist with physician recruitment, implemented an asset management plan, generated community pride by resuming Communities in Bloom and started a community garden project, focused on reconciliation with surrounding Indigenous communities, completed the pool at Central Park and the new water treatment program, improved communication through monthly newsletters, regular open houses and online surveys, continue regular communication with provincial ministries for improved economic infrastructure opportunities, assisted living type housing, healthcare enhancement, physician recruitment, and economic development, including discussions about access to middle and low income housing support, in which we're being assisted by NEOS. Reviewed all the bylaws and policies to make them current and relevant, and created a process to ensure annual review. Reduced a number of standing committees from 7 to 2 to ensure that involvement is there for more councillors. All this after having to rebuild some very tattered relationship. These and more, and much more to do. Things I'd like to see complete, and I talked about them already: a heliport at the Nipawin Hospital, the necessary work, the application for ICIP funding, we are mandated to do that, whether we receive funding or we don't. And I want to see the community gardens grow, and there's much more on the radar. And I would make you 2 promises. I will continue to work very hard for you. And the other promise might be that you're probably not going to like every single thing that we do, and that we are going to make some mistakes. And that's where your promise to us comes, to come and talk. Not on Facebook, but really talk and bring your ideas and constructive solutions, not just criticisms, and stay positive so that it's about the entire community. And sometimes that means that you and I don't get exactly what we want, but in the big picture, we all get what it is that we need. And my final comment, be patient as we walk together over the next 4 years. And I want to thank you for the opportunity and thank the Chamber for hosting this event and thank the people that have supported me as we move toward this election on Monday.
In the draw of the closing remark draw we had prior to this evening, second on the list is Mr. Marlon Zacharias with a 5-minute closing remark.
Well, people who know me know that I'm not a man of a lot of words, unless we're talking about fishing or something like that. We can't just run blindly forward into the future without a plan. When I moved to Nipawin 6 years ago, I started with a plan for myself. Over time, our plans and our goals can shift and move, changing to meet current situations. In the last 6 years, our town has shown me many things. Its great community and team spirit, its friendly downtown atmosphere, and its potential to be even more with the right plan. Business expansion and growth, affordable housing for our residents, and strong partnerships both in and around our community are key to moving forward, and that's why they have key positions in my plan. My name is Marlon Zacharias, and I am planning for growth.
Thank you very much, Marlon. And a final 5-minute closing remark to Mr. Brian Starkell. You got 5 minutes.
Thank you. Now that I'm retired, I have the time to devote to the mayor's position. I know the understandings of the town of Nipawin, and I have the knowledge of the importance of finances. So partnering with and working with other municipalities may be one way we can save some funding. We must ensure that our infrastructure is in good condition. When chatting to the main things that I heard was sidewalk repair and also sidewalk extensions. So with that, we would have to take that to our CEO, and so that he can be prepared to work with that at the next budget. We should always be, we should be looking at active transportation and designated routes for our school for the safety of our children. We must promote tourism, as we spoke about earlier, and with his hunting, cross-country skiing, hiking, and the list just goes on. One of my concerns is the health and safety of our residents. That's why we should all be working with the RCMP to see how we can reduce crime. Looking into outdoor sports courtyard, such as pickleball, tennis, basketball, something for our youth to enjoy, might be a start. We need to address our dressing rooms at the Centennial Arena. There's no way I can do anything of this by myself. We all have to work together, council, administration, and the town staff. We must keep an open mind. We must listen to our residents and all the rest of the council members and be willing to change. COVID has shown us that we all can change. Funding through grants, partnerships, and other financial streams will be a priority. I ask for your trust and support, either at the Vance poll this Wednesday, November the 4th, at the town office from 5 till 8 p.m., or Election Day, Monday, November the 9th, at the Evergreen, from 9 a.m. till 8 p.m. I look forward for the next 4 years working for you. Thank you.
For watching at home and tuning in on Facebook Live or YouTube and submitting your questions and being part of the first of 2 all candidates forums ahead of the 2020 Nipawin municipal election coming up shortly in 1 week on November 9th. We finished our mayoral portion of these candidates forums. We'd like to thank the incumbent mayor, Madam Rennie Harper, Mr. Brian Starkell, and Mr. Marlon Zacharias for partaking in tonight's evening. Thanks to Nipawin and District Chamber of Commerce for moderating the comments and making sure your voices and your comments and your questions are heard this evening. And to the Nipawin Apostolic Church for hosting this first candidate forum. Hang tight, we're coming back up on 7:30 sharp. We go from the mayoral side to the council side. We'll have all our council candidates ahead of the 2020 Nipawin municipal elections take your questions and give their platforms and explain to you why they should receive your vote ahead of November 9th. My name is Aaron Schultz. I'm the moderator. Hang tight. We've got the all council candidates forum coming up at 7:30.